Welcome to Real Sense, and in this video I'm going to review the Anker Solix F3800. This is the Generation 1 F3800, and I'm going to go over its pros, its cons, and why it might be a better option compared to the F3800 Plus. Here are the specs. You can pause the video if you want to go through each one. As I'm going through the unit, I'll explain each one. Alright, so on the top it has a nice big handle, which makes it easier to move around. And let's begin with the car port or cigarette lighter port. It does 120 watts. And on the bottom of the plug, there's the on and off button. Now moving on to the screen, this button is for pairing and this one is for turning on and off the screen. And to power it on, you press the blue button and you have to press and hold. As you can see, there's an animation on the battery percentage that pops up. The light bar turns on and the pairing button flashes, meaning that it's not paired yet. You can turn off the screen at any time just pressing the screen button like so. And as you can see, pressing the carport button lights it up to indicate that it's on. Alright, so on the bottom of the screen you see 3 USB-C ports and 2 USB-A ports. The USB-C ports do 100 watts and the USB-A ports do 12 watts. Okay, so moving on onto the plugs on the side. On the top we have the NEMA 1450 and next to that one we have the NEMA L1430. They both do 240 volts. And below these we have 6 AC outlet ports and 2 overcharging switch protectors. On the top is the on and off button for the AC outlets, and it also lights up when it's on. Now on each side you can see there's giant grills. These grills are for airflow and for cooling, so definitely do not put this against a wall as it will prevent the airflow, but they're nice and wide so the cooling is effective. And on the other side you can see there's more giant grills and there's 4 fans which could get loud at full power. Okay, so on the top you can see the home panel port, and that's if you have the home panel accessory to connect to your house, which allows for automatic control of the power sources like solar panels, AC output, AC input into the home for whole home backup. Alright, so here's the AC input for charging from the wall. On the side we have the overcharge switch, and on the bottom of these we have the XD60 connectors for the solar input. And the last port on the bottom is the expansion battery port, which uses a proprietary cable. I advise you to get this cable because there's a little hack I'm going to show you towards the end of the video that is going to make this power station even better. Okay, so as you can see, there's 4 wheels. The wheels are nice and smooth, and the front wheels have a lock, so it makes setting up the device and ensuring that it doesn't move a lot easier. And the wheels on the back, which are much bigger, are nice and stiff. They make moving the device a lot easier. And on the top there's a slide out bar that you can press the button almost like a luggage, and the handle is really strong. Also on the top there's 2 rubber feet which allow the device to be placed on the floor horizontally. But as you can see, getting up the device, you still need to balance it out. As you can see, I'm placing my foot on the back, and it looks like they made the little indentation for that, so it's very well thought out. But at the end of the day, it's really heavy, so this is one big boy to move around. And the handle has a nice click which locks it in and keeps it out of the way, so that's nice. Alright, so let's do some testing, and first I want to start with the negatives of this unit. One major drawback of this Anker F3800 is that if you're connected to the wall AC outlet, it turns off half of the power, meaning one of the legs it gets shut off, so the 240 doesn't work, and half of the AC output plugs don't work either. So for this test you can see I have one light on this side of the plugs and then this light on the other side of the plugs, so one on each column. And I'm going to turn on the unit and we're going to see that both columns are working because both lights are turned on. And when I connect the power station to the AC input, you can see that this light turns off, so that means that this leg or this column gets shut off. So that is a huge drawback. You know, I'm not sure what Anker was thinking, if it's a safety feature or whatever, but obviously this is a major issue and a major drawback because half of the power station works when you're connected to the AC wall outlet. But it doesn't stop there. There's another caveat with this Anker F3800, and that is the solar input. If you look at the specs, they say that the Anker F3800 does 2400 watts of solar input. But note that this is at maximum 60 volts. Now in my case, I have 340 watt panels and it's impossible to meet the 2400 watts. Hopefully this is easy to follow. As you can see, I can use both solar inputs, but I can only use 2 panels on each one in parallel. That leaves me with 40.7 volts and 19.8 amps per solar input, which is about 680 watts once you account for the maximum power voltage of the solar panel. So that leaves me a total of about 1200 watts in real world use. And as you can see, due to the limitation on the voltage, doing a series connection will go over the 60 volts, so 81.4 volts. And if I do an additional panel in parallel, I'm gonna go over the maximum 25 amps. So that'll be 29.7 amps. All right, now that we got that out of the way, let's move on to more testing. All right, so here I'm gonna show you how to charge a EV. So for example, I'm gonna use my Tesla here. And if you press twice on the power button, that's going to activate the EV mode on the power station. You can see the little card, but there's a little trick here. You can see I'm plugging into the regular plugs, the 120 volt outlets, and as you can see, the EV mode is on, but you can see the status light on the Tesla is orange or red, meaning that it's not charging. So this means if you're going to charge an EV through the 120 volt plugs, you're going to need a neutral ground bonding plug connected on that leg or on that column that the outlet is connected to. The right way to connect the EV without that plug is to pretty much double click the power button again to activate EV mode, connect the charging cable to the NEMA 1450, and then that way it activates the EV mode in 240 volts. And in this way, once you connect it to the car will recognize the grounding bond, and that works just fine. As you can see, once it's connected to the car recognizes the power, and you can see the little light turn green. All right, so moving on to more testing. Here I'm going to do a power output test and see how far the power station can go until it shuts off. So for this test, I have the Tesla connected, and then I have a heater with a heat gun connected on the 120 volt outlets. And you can see we're consuming right now about 4,000 watts. All right, like 10 minutes passed and I'm gonna crank up the amperage. You can see now it's going up about 5,000, 5,700. And note that the heater and the heat gun both do about 1,000 watts. So most likely that leg is going to be overloaded. As you can see, it just shut off because the car is using 240 volts. And that one leg is probably maxing out. So this is what happens when one of the phases or one of the legs or one of the columns on the outputs gets overloaded. Pretty much the whole system gets shut off. If you have more than 3 kilowatts or 3,000 watts running on just one leg, it is going to shut off. All right, so now let's continue with just the Tesla. I'm going to max it out to see how far it goes. As you can see, it's climbing around 4,000 watts. All right, so here I'm pushing it to 25 amps at 240 volts. And you can see that bad boy is still keeping up. So it's pretty much almost at the 6,000 watts continuous output limit. And I kept it like that for a few minutes. As you can hear, this is what the fans sound like at maximum capacity. All right, so as you just heard, that bad boy is screaming. So it was pretty loud. I would say if you have this in a room or somewhere, it's definitely going to bother you. But if you have it in a closet or out in the garage or something, it's not going to bother you at all. And now I'm going to push it to 28 amps. And you can see this is going over 6,000 watts. And surprisingly, it kept up. It stayed like this for a couple of minutes. And I decided to turn it up just because I felt like I was wasting my time just waiting there. So it wouldn't shut off. So that surprised me as well. This Anker F3800 is actually pretty capable, and the inverter is really good and powerful, and there's some leeway of extra power. and then I'm going to turn it up to 30 amps, and you can see we're at 7,000 and it stayed there for like exactly 11 seconds. So as you can see, it's about to shut off right now. All right, so let's move on to the fun part. I promise you guys I'm going to show you a little hack with the expansion cable. And here it is. As you can see, the expansion cable is proprietary, and I got this idea from a different video that I saw where they cut it open, and it turns out this battery is always active, meaning it can receive power directly. And as you can see here, the positive and the negative have 2 wires each on each side, and you can see here that the left 2 cables are for the positive and the right 2 cables are for the negative, and the middle cables are for communication, and you don't need to worry about that. You can just leave that capped, and you can see that here on the Anderson connector, the red portion is the positive and the black portion is the negative. And so what I did was get a 48 volt battery charger like this one here, and you can just directly connect these two. And it turns out, since the battery is directly accessible through the port, you can just directly charge this like a regular 48 volt battery. Now, if you notice the Amazon listing for this specific charger, it does about 1200 watts, which is lower than the 1800 watts that the AC charger does from the wall for this unit. And I'm fine with that, because the trade-off is that now the 240 volt doesn't shut down. So I can charge the battery while using the entire capacity of the output. So I can use 240 volts and charge the battery simultaneously, which is how it should be. So as you can see here, I have both lights again connected to each of the legs, and they're both turned on. Now, a little quirk that happens with this method of charging, you can see that the time frame for charging, it has 99.9 days. That means that the output inverter is producing is less than the input that is receiving, meaning there's more capacity being received than being consumed. So the estimation is wanky, you know, the calculation that it does internally is showing that as 99 days. And that's one way to gauge whether or not you're charging enough. If your amount of days is a large number, like 99.9, that means you're charging more than what you're producing. And if that number starts to come down, let's say to 5 days, 2 days, 9 hours, 2 hours, whatever, that means you're most likely producing or consuming more power than the input is receiving. All right, so with this method, you can also get around the issues with the solar controllers built in, because they are so limited with the 60 volt and the 25 amps that there's not much expandability or options to meet the 2400 max solar input. Therefore, if you can just get a separate MPPT controller that's for 48 volt batteries, you can have your own separate MPPT controller and connect that to the battery port the same way that I have the charger connected, and you can pretty much bypass the built-in MPPT controller, and that will be an additional way to charge the battery with solar. And the last option is that you can get another 48 volt battery and add it into as an expansion battery. So this pretty much gets around all the limitations for this unit. Now remember, do this at your own risk, and most likely if Anker finds out or you mess up your battery because of you're doing this, they probably will deny your warranty. But it makes this unit, if you can get it at a good price, well worth the money, because you can save a lot of money upfront since this unit is being phased out, and then you can upgrade it over time. You can add a new MPPT controller that's more reliant and stronger and can work with a wider range of panels, or you can expand a new system and add a bigger 48 volt battery, and now you can share power with that battery and pretty much expand this out. So pretty much this opens up a wide range of options for this unit if you are one of those DIYers that likes to save money. All right, so one last thing. The battery is fully charged now. I'm gonna turn it off, and I wanna show you guys that when the battery is turned off, this charger will wake up the battery. As you can see, I turned it off and now it's waking up again. And when this happens, you can see it starts like a boot cycle. It keeps booting and booting. You know, like I said, do this on your own risk, but it doesn't seem to do anything. I've tried this multiple times in multiple days and nothing happens, to be honest. It just looks like the battery is trying to not wake up, and the charger is telling it like, oh, there's a charge coming in, so you have to wake up. And that's a good thing, to be honest, because let's say you don't have any solar and you were charging on the wall and for whatever reason your battery runs out. Once the power is back on again, the battery will wake up automatically. So it's a pro in my book. Okay, so this video wasn't sponsored by anybody, and if you want to support my channel, all you have to do is hit like and subscribe, and comment down below what you think of this method. What do you think of the Anker Solix F3800? Do you have one? Have you tried this method of charging? And what do you like about it, and what do you like about it? I think this method kind of fixes all the issues with this unit, but it does require some DIYing and some wire cutting. But I think it's well worth it, and it's really easy. Till next time, bye.